While they don't have a lot of it, Disney Plus original content is actually pretty darn good, with a few notable exceptions, and some of the stuff that they dumped on Disney Plus. But I would say that Godmothered is the best Disney Plus original movie since Lady and the Tramp, which kicked off the service about a year ago. And while watching it, I felt that, pre-streaming wars, which have recalibrated us in terms of what we're willing to pay to see at the multiplex, right? But before the plethora of streaming services came about, I think a lot of people would have paid to see Godmothered in theaters. I think it's that good, which is pretty impressive for a movie that again was made specifically for Disney Plus, with a turnaround that was incredibly fast. This movie shot in January 2020 and is now being released. That's within a year. And it actually has some VFX in it too. And they're done well. That's impressive. This movie was a well-oiled machine. Disney Plus wished for a good original film, and I think that wish has been granted. Now, something else that's interesting about Godmothered is that it follows in the footsteps of Frozen and Maleficent to highlight that finding romance isn't the only definition of happily ever after, which I think is a nice message, particularly the way it's done here. I didn't think it was too heavy-handed here. Although it's interesting that Disney's really driving home this feminist message, which again I think is wonderful, but they're so reluctant to maybe, champion some other causes. But this one, I think maybe they could spread it out a little bit because they already have Frozen and Maleficent. But this movie is very strong in that regard. Not only in terms of, I think, effectiveness, but in putting that message across. But don't worry, there is some romance afoot with the dashing Santiago Cabrera, who I'd never heard of before I saw this movie, but he did a real nice job. He was great. He turns out also, though, to be quite the chameleon. I looked him up and I was like, where did you come from, Santiago Cabrera? What a great name. And I didn't even look, he was in Merlin, he was in Picard, and look how different he looks in all these projects. Maybe that's hurting him. Maybe it's hard for him to bring fans with him where he goes, because he just disappears. He goes into Hollywood witness protection with each new project. But here he does a great job as a low-key Prince Charming stand-in. I won't give anything away on that, but I thought it was cute. But for the majority of the film, it's all women on screen, with fairy godmother in training Jillian Bell and the little girl turned woman she's trying to help, Isla Fisher, front and center. Now, I don't need to tell you because it's so obvious. Bell and Fisher are two very talented comedians. I always enjoy their work. As I said when I did the trailer reaction for this movie, Brittany Runs a Marathon was a great movie that Jillian Bell starred in. People who saw it loved it, but unfortunately very few people saw it. And Isla Fisher, unfortunately, doesn't get a lot of work these days, but she's very good. And they both deliver here. They're enjoyable as ever and are both very well cast. Then there's also Fisher's sister and her two daughters, who not only have a front row seat to the shenanigans, but her two daughters, specifically her eldest daughter, find themselves swept up in the adventure as well in ways that I thought were very good. Although there is Gary the raccoon. That's a male character, and he's used quite effectively in a recurring gag throughout. I thought that was great. But to see a film that's all women, I would say, for 70% of the time, even the news anchor they focus on is a woman, and the camera person is a woman, in a high-stakes third act, by the way, that has nothing to do with the guy at all. It's a strong choice, and I do think it reflects some of the gender divisions that we're seeing develop in modern society. And that's where some women do lead lives where there are not many men involved, and to be fair, vice versa. I think there are less instances to have things. It would be an interesting thing to explore why that's happening. This movie just presents it. That's of course not what it's about. Now, some of you might be like, why are you going here, Grace? Why are we having this discussion in the Godmothered review? I didn't make a movie that was mostly women. Take it up with Disney. When you watch the movie, you'll notice that it's impossible to miss. All right, it's from the director of the Bridget Jones movies. And she doesn't really get a lot of work, which is interesting because those were very successful films. You think she would work more. But, I think Sherry Maguire, she does an okay job here. I don't think the movie's amazingly well directed. I'm like, who directed this? But it's serviceably directed. Speaking of gender, though, at the end of the film, there's an animated epilogue, which was fantastic, and underscores Godmothered's similarities to Enchanted. It really is cut from the same cloth. And you might notice that there are some children being trained as fairy godmothers there wearing ball gowns, and one of them happens to be a little boy in a ball gown. So there's a little bit of representation there for Disney in the LGBT camp. And I think that's also interesting because in Sony's upcoming Cinderella, Billy Porter will be playing the fairy god person. Speaking of male characters, in addition to Santiago Cabrera, there's Utkarsh Umbadkar, who has a supporting role that I think was supposed to be funny, but was just really annoying. I did not like that character at all. However, Stephanie Weir as the news person, and she's a Mad TV alum, she is very funny. I felt bad she doesn't get more work. She's great. She has an over-the-top take on a narcissistic news anchor who's more concerned with ratings than facts. I thought that was funny. That was also a little bit of a commentary in the film as well about local news, and I thought that was very well done. The movie has some magic in it. You know, it can't afford to have like magic all the time, but when it does use magic, it delivers. It's very good, and there's a lot of it in the third act. I was like, wow, you're really going for it. I appreciate it. Thank you. And this is also a Christmas movie, and that it takes place during Christmas. But it's Christmassy enough that it's a nice addition to this season. When I was watching it, I felt like I was watching a Christmas movie. It's hard this time of year. You're like, oh, should I watch this now or should I wait until after the holidays because I want to get my Christmas on? You definitely will get your Christmas on watching this movie. I don't see myself rewatching Godmothered every year for the holidays, quite frankly. I mean, it's not that type of movie. It's not that type of Christmas movie, but I really enjoyed watching it once, and I would definitely be interested in a sequel, quite frankly. I don't know if Isla Fisher's character needs to return, even though she did a great job, but having either another sequel or turning this into a series where Jillian Bell and other fairy godmothers go and help people with well, you'll see what happens in the movie, but let's just say they have a new directive. I think that could be really cool. I would be interested in that, quite frankly. But just please, for the love of God, don't bring back June Squibb. She is awful in this movie. Awful. I know you guys pointed out that she's like Oscar. I mean, that must have been a fluke. She's so bad here. I mean, I would have cut her out of the movie, quite frankly. I'd be like, I can't take it. And you know what? In the sequel, or whatever they decide to do, I'd love it if Carlise Burke, who plays a fellow fairy godmother, could get a bigger role and take up the space that June Squibb wasted, quite frankly, because Burke did a very nice job with the few lines that she had. So that's my review of Godmothered, which starts streaming on Disney Plus this Friday. Share your own thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.